Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. First item is approval of the agenda.
Move to approve. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Approved. Minutes of the August 23rd, 2022 board meeting.
Move to approve. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Broadband update.
All yours.
Up quick. Good morning. How are y'all today?
Good.
So I printed some maps. That just so you can see the detail. They're a little bit larger. Yeah, that's fine. I'll set one up here, and then I'll talk from this one, and then we need this one here as well. But basically, this shows the southern half of the county. So pretty much south of Highway 34, the area that we're actively building. Of course, we've got grant money to go up into the northern part of the county. But we're focusing on finishing the areas that we've been committed to first. So basically, the green area is the area that we currently offer service. So some of it, you can see the county line is this kind of pink or salmon colored line in the south, but we've started coming up into Wapello County, and we're actively offering service basically up along Copperhead Road, east of Highway 63, that area over in there. We finished that last year actually, and then we built coming up Lake Road and then over and up towards the west a little bit. So that green area is where we actively offer and are connecting customers up. And as expected out in this area, people don't have any other option other than maybe, US Cellular or some wireless technologies, which really don't meet their needs. So the hookups are going very strong. Customers seem to be very, very excited to get hooked up. So things are going well. So basically where we're actively working then is this area, the circle right north of this area here. We've got a contractor that's been building in this area, expanding it through the summer. This darker green line is what he has buried right now. We don't have it spliced yet, so we're not offering service. We'll wait until we get enough cable in the ground that makes sense for our splicer to come in and do some work, but that probably won't be too long. And then the thicker red lines are the areas that the permits are approved. He's actively building in and working on. So he's our smaller contractor. He's out of Centerville, does a great job. We get very, very few complaints. He goes, frankly, he goes, I don't say above and beyond, because you should never say, above and beyond. I mean, you should always expect the high quality, but his progress probably is not as fast as maybe some other contractors, but his quality is second to none. And he's out of Centerville, a company called Chico Construction, if anybody's ever heard of them. Dave McCann is the guy that owns them. Great company, great people. They're working in this area. Once he's done with this, he'll move on this area, this other shaded area that's towards Blakesburg. So he won't finish that whole area this year, but he'll certainly make a dent in this area out to the west. So he's the one that's in here actively working. Then if we look back towards the east, this bigger gray area, we have a contractor, I think he's out of Pella, KLK Construction, if anybody's ever heard of them. They're a big telecom, they're a medium-sized contractor. They're bigger than Chico. They've got 2 full crews, and they've committed to doing about 100 miles a year for us. But they were finishing another project, I think down in Missouri. And the last time we talked to them about 2 or 3 weeks ago, they said end of August they expect to be here. Well, we're at the end of August, so honestly, I expect it to be the first half of September. So they're going to start working in this area and build off of what we built last year, and be building out in that area to the east of Highway 63. In fact, probably should get a permit submitted to you. If not today, then tomorrow. And they'll be working there. I don't have it highlighted, but the other thing that's going on, and it's not grant money from the state or the county side. We did start to build Eldon. We probably have about 3/4 of the town built. We haven't started hooking up customers yet because we're waiting for some stuff that goes inside the cabinets. But the construction there has gone extremely well. Eldon, like I said, is about 3/4 of the way built with fiber. So we'll
I
be.
was in assets. I heard the other day someone was doing L.
Yep. Yeah, so we're building Eldon and like I said, as soon as we get some stuff for our cabinets, we expect some of the equipment to arrive next month. And we're working with a second vendor. They gave us a date of December, which honestly is not good enough. So we're trying to figure out how to pull that date up. So that's really from a big picture perspective, the construction we have going on and where we are. The goal is to have everything south of Highway 63 built by next summer, and we'll be moving up into the northern part of the county.
South of 34.
I'm sorry, yeah, south of 34, 63 north south. Thank you. So sorry, was there another question?
How far north are you gonna go above and tumble?
So basically, and I didn't print a map of the whole area, but about 80% of the county will be built. So we're gonna go, some of it will go all the way to the county line to the north. There's just a few pockets that weren't available. You guys with your your ARPA funds that you committed at the last meeting, that'll help fill in some of the areas, but there's still some holes. The good news is there's some more grant money coming down from the infrastructure program, and the FCC right now is working on the mapping, and it goes to the census block level. So we expect some of those areas to have more funding available. So now the goal is between us and the other companies, there's a few other companies that do some fiber in the county. There's a Farmers Telephone, not of Batavia, but over even further east out of.
Because they cover a little bit of west.
They're in the very northeast corner. They haven't built yet, to my knowledge, but they have some grant money for that very northeast corner. So between us, Mahaska, and the other Farmers Telephone, someday I wouldn't be surprised if we get to where there's a 100% coverage.
So your anticipation is that by next summer, everything south of 34 will be available?
Yes. Yep.
Any projection?
On the north side?
On the north side.
So really what that comes down to, quite honestly, is we, as a cooperative, we're mindful of the risk that we take on. So we're not planning on taking out any debt in order to finance it. So between the grant money and our internal cash flow that our business generates, the worst case is we're committed to building it by 2026. So about 4 years. But based on cash flow, if we can build a little bit faster, I mean, it'd be nice to be more in the 3-year time frame. But at this point, 2026 is what we're planning on.
Now, what dollars are you looking at to do that? You say cash flow and grants, and what money are we looking at?
So the total project of everything that we've committed in Wapello County, it's about $25 million. So I think just in a general sense, about not quite 50%, so about 12.5 million come from the state. You guys have pledged about 1.5, slightly more. So basically 50% between you and the state, it comes from grant money. So 50% is being invested by Citizens Mutual. So about $12.5 million. That's why I say it just, for us, $12.5 million, while we're in a pretty good position right now, from a cash perspective, we don't have $12.5 million in the bank today. So every year our business generates, a fair amount of cash. So we're taking that and reinvesting it. And that's where the rest of the funds come from.
But what I was looking at is that area north of 34. If we had some kind of definitive numbers, and maybe the county may have an opportunity, whether it be sales tax or something else, to bump that up so it's a little quicker.
Yep.
But without knowing, let's say county, if you give us $100,000, we can go 10 more miles. We probably couldn't consider that, but if we knew what we were going to get, the opportunity may be there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we certainly could, and that's been on my list of things to do for the rest of this year, starting to look at next year, is to lay out, I mean, every year we'll update it, but a projection of our capital expenditures and then, you know, the pace of construction. So once I get that put together, we can certainly sit down and have a conversation of, you know, how can you guys maybe help accelerate that?
And I think with the new infrastructure dollars coming in, if there's some of those, like you said, holes or other funds, and that may help on that side too, I'm assuming.
It might actually, yeah. Yeah, the challenge is when there's federal dollars involved, and even though this is going to go, these funds will go through the state, the early view of how they're going to administer it, they're going to make us do the full environmental permitting, which is honestly, for what we do, is kind of ridiculous because we don't disturb. You know, when we plow down existing rights of way, you know, between directional boring and the plowing we do, it really doesn't disturb any historical or environmental, but they still make us go through the whole process. It can take a year. So we've even talked about, even before we apply for the money, do we go ahead and start that process? The risk is if we don't get the money, you know, we've spent some money we didn't have to, but honestly, I think there's a pretty good chance. Now, backing up just 1 second, there is a role for the county that I wanted to share. So the program's called the BEAD program. The government likes acronyms. I forget broadband equity and deployment, I think it stands for, but that's what the money that comes out of the infrastructure. It's being going to be, there's $42 billion nationally. So a pretty big amount of money, and they're going to allocate those dollars to the states based upon the percentage of unserved locations in each state. So let's just say we get 2%, you know, there's 50 states. If on average we have our share, we have 2% of the unserved locations in the country are in Iowa. We'll get 2% of $42 billion in essence. So about $800 million the state will get. So they've started, and the NTIA on the federal side has started sharing their rules on how that money needs to be administered. The state will do the grants, but they've got to follow specific rules. So one of the things, and this gets a little bit in the weeds, so I apologize if hopefully I keep it fairly high level, but in the past, the person applying said, we want to build this area. You know, the state says these areas are eligible, and we would say, okay, we want to build these areas, and they would use a scoring mechanism to decide which projects were awarded. You know, typical process that a government entity would use. But in these projects, rather than us deciding what areas we want to build, the state's going to go through a process of having the projects already defined. And then once the projects are defined, we can bid on the project. Well, how do those projects get defined? And we've been talking to the OCIO, and you know, they've been sharing some of what they expect. But basically, any community organization can submit to the OCIO so they're going to have all the locations that are eligible. Somebody has to group them together and say, hey, this is a project, and submit it to the OCIO and say, we think this should be a project. Well, who's a community organization? It's any governmental, state, city entity, it's any nonprofit, but it's not a provider like us. So we can't sit down and look at the network and say, gosh, we think this is the area to build and submit that to the OCIO, but the county can. But for you guys to take the time and have the knowledge of the networks out there and, you know, to try to come up with that, I don't know how many counties are frankly going to do that. So since we can't do it, but we have knowledge that can help put the plan together and you guys submit it, we want to offer, if you're interested in working with us, we'll work with you guys to define what we think a good project is and then help submit that to the state. So, you know, my long-winded thing is, you know, the state is going to be pretty soon, probably within that, hopefully by the end of the year, be submitting some information out there saying, okay, you know, define the projects. And so we just want to offer, we're willing to work with you know, the counties that we're in to help submit those projects.
I'd be willing to do that too. I mean, we need to sit down, I mean, the legwork part of it, or, you know, putting that all together, like you said, that's gonna be your guys' forte. But, you know, to understand it or whatever, we can definitely do that as it comes forward.
Okay.
But you have to wait until they say, okay, funding's available before we actually start that.
Well, they'll actually ask for that before the funding is really available. It will be one of the steps before. They just have to wait until a map is out that shows here's all the locations that are eligible. Once that's available, then that's when they're going to ask for projects to be defined and submitted.
Will you know that before we know that?
Well, depends on how close you watch the news, but yes, the day they're and we're talking to the OCIO fairly frequently as a group of carriers, you know, so we're pretty well in tune with what they are. So yeah, we'll know probably pretty early in the process of when they're going to be asking for that.
Well, this is kind of like any other project. There's a push to do it. And then once they see you doing it, there's a big push to hurry up. That's just how things go. So once they heard that we were committing ARPA money for this, then they're saying, okay, how soon are you going to get here?
Yes.
Well, that's not soon enough.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to move as quickly and as rapidly as you'll allow us to move. If you need something from us, we'll be available.
Okay. Yeah, and you know, the county engineer's office has been very responsive. I think things are working really well just on the logistical side. So like we talked about, you know, for us, the pace of building is really controlled by the cash flow. And so, you know, like I said, we'll certainly have those conversations as well. And then on the BEAD grant program that's coming out, and like I said, we may get a bit, you know, step out ahead and start doing the environmental permitting now, so that if we do get the award, we can get the construction a whole lot quicker. In fact, there's an area in the middle here that we have that federal, it's called a Reconnect grant. That was the very first grant we received. It was before I even started here. So almost 2 years ago, we received it. It took us over a year to get the environmental permit, and then just working through the government on approval to bid it out and stuff. We still don't. It's
So that's what I was gonna ask about, that area between the two shaded areas, like
Yeah.
Copperhead Road.
So these
160,
blue lines,
yeah.
those blue lines are the Reconnect funds.
So, but it's funded, it's just getting it.
Yeah. So basically, it's administered by the Rural Utility Service, and they've been funding telecom type of construction for many years, and they've got a very defined process. So we basically have it designed. We put a plans and specifications together. We send it to RUS to get approval. We've been waiting on that approval. We're hoping we get it, you know, any week now, and then we can release it to bid. I've been of the mindset that, you know, since we're already almost into the fall, we won't be building that area until next spring. But we were able to secure some fiber through a distributor that had some fiber that's available. So if we supply the materials, we may be able to get it started this year. There's a small window, but we're pushing to get that done. But that's just an example. When you take federal dollars, and you guys know this, all the strings that can be attached to those. So if there's anything we can do ahead of time that expedites that process, the better off we all are.
Is there a significance between the solid blue and the dashed blue?
Yeah, so those colors are too close together. So what we do when we build these fiber networks, we break them up into areas, and we call them serving areas. And in the middle of the serving area, you can see these like orange dots. That's where the cabinets go. And the fiber goes out from there to all the locations. So the dashed blue line is the border of a serving area. And then the solid blue is that Reconnect funded fiber. So the dash blue is just the boundary around an area, and the solid blue is the fiber itself. Normally you use red and green, the green for being in service and the red for being, proposed or under construction. But I just used a different color for the Reconnect just to, make it stand out a little bit.
Okay. Any questions?
Well, I think to have half the county done in 2 years is better than a lot of people could ever imagine 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I agree with Jerry. Anything we can do to help speed it along even quicker.
Okay.
We're here to do that. So.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank
Yep.
you.
Well, and thanks for all the support, that the county's given us from the, the engineer's office to you guys as the supervisor and all the people out there. I mean, like I said, as we're building out into these rural areas, people are excited and, they can't get it fast enough. They're anxious for it. And honestly, I don't blame them. If I was out there, I'd be begging for it too. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
Would you like the second one? All right.
How about if we put this on the wall over by the landfill? So it comes in. Let's do it. Resolution number 44, 2022, establish a new fund, local government opioid abatement fund. Kelly and I was on is that a webinar? And they explained a lot of this to us, and they gave us some projected revenue, like on ours, the first year, we're going to get $26,832.83. I've got it here for all the counties. The list of things that it can be used for, we have that. And you already actually have the first payment, don't you, Kelly?
Correct.
You already have the first payment. There's several more to come. Be annually when it comes. The projections, I'm not sure. The discussions at one time was that we'll get this for 20 years. Basically, it's supposed to be used to correct what the opioid misuse caused. One of the good ways to do that is through governance board, where we have a system already in place to help those kind of people. And there'll be 4 counties in ours, so they didn't get near as much as we've got, but if we pooled that, we'd be able to do some pretty good work. None of that's been decided. Those are just options that our governance board for the 4 counties has discussed the opportunities. And now this here is setting up a fund where only that money goes in and we can track easily what comes out of it.
Move the resolution.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed, say no. Resolution 43, 2022, approval of contract for project for bank stabilization along River Road.
So this is a bank stabilization project on River Road down there where we did, just upstream of the last one we did. This is an 80-20 split between the state of Iowa and us. It's from the floods we had a few years ago. Finally, we've got everything cleared out, all our clearances, and we let the project, and I think 3030 was our low bidder. 3030 construction out of Des Moines. And this is the award of that contract.
You know what that bid was?
It should be
400,855.
400,000. And what about the completion?
I believe there's 60 working days, but they don't start until next August. We anticipate that we're hoping that they would get going sooner than later, either this winter or this fall. But I cannot talk to the contractor until we have a signed contract with them for the rules and regulations for DOT.
Is that gonna be okay until next August?
Yeah.
We're not gonna have to worry.
There shouldn't be any major issues. We'll make sure it stays open in the meantime, but this is just to stabilize that whole area.
It looks nice, first project there.
And this will just take it and continue it upriver.
Move the resolution.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Tax suspension and driver code section 427.8.
Move approve. Second.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed, say no. Approval of right-of-way contract for Bridge 51 replacement.
This is one of two contracts for right of way. We're planning on replacing Bridge 51, and we need a little bit more ground. And so we just need a couple more tenths of acres.
Bridge 51.
Bridge 51 is on Whiskey Ridge, about 2,000 feet east of the Monroe County line.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Approval of right-of-way contract for Bridge 35.
So these next two are both for the north side and the south side. Contracts we're replacing the bridge there. We need a little bit more room to do some mitigation work. And this is northeast of our agency shop.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Approval of right-of-way contract for Bridge 35, Dimmitt.
Move to approve.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Approved. Anything else to come before the board? Kelly told me that got the report. She sent it to me on the asbestos and lead paint. They came in from Dubuque last week and did that report. I forwarded on to Vic Amoroso, A&J Engineering, that's heading up the window project for an answer back to us. Is there anything we have to do? And that whole assessment only cost, what, $980 to all the windows, the red paint, and we told them that sometime next summer we'll get windows in, so we take bids on the 30th.
Okay.
The 31st.
I think it's a very good today.
We take bids on it. It's waiting a long time. But once we get a contractor, and there were two local contractors that were going to bid it, I don't know if they will, but they were here. There's an up to 6 month turnaround on getting the window constructed, getting them built. So they won't be putting them in next fall, but next summer. And that was the way we planned it. We do all the paperwork and bidding ahead. They would make the windows this winter, next summer we put them in. They made discussion with Kelly about how we can do it without disturbing the offices the most. And some of them is like put a screen up around each window as they work on it. So there won't be wind coming in, dust coming in, things like that. So I'm really optimistic about next summer and the winters. We've been waiting a long time for this.